Welcome, 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 everybody. Welcome, 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 welcome. I hope you can see us. I hope you can hear us. If this is the first time that you're joining us, welcome to the Busara Leadership Hour. My name is Vera, and I'm so glad to have you join us today. So we are always excited to come to you on the last Friday of every month, because we have exciting news, we have exciting topics to discuss. And today our topic is really about transition. And I'm not doing this alone. I'm doing this with the evergreen Taka Awori. Help me welcome Taka.
Hi, Vera. Thank you. You all, I hope you liked my dance moves. We know it's a Friday afternoon, Friday evening for those of you in East Africa. So we want to make sure we also start on a bit of a light mood, even though we're talking about something quite serious. Huh? And as Vera said, today we're talking about leadership transitions. Huh? And maybe I should say just 2 words about why we're talking about leadership transition. As many of you who are on the call, and again, welcome, it's just so lovely to see you all. But from what I have seen, and I'm sure what many of you see on this continent, is we have a challenge with leadership transitions. Huh? We see a couple of things. On one hand, either you see leaders who overstay. They never want to leave, whether that's at a political level, organizational level, but leaders who overstay, they're welcome. That's one challenge. On another hand, you see leaders who, when they leave, everything collapses because they didn't prepare their people, they didn't prepare their organization. The other challenge we see is we see leaders who pick favorites to take over after them. And then as a result, the leaders who take over after them don't have the credibility to lead others. So that becomes a challenge. So that, that Vera, is why we're talking about leadership transitions. And so lovely to see you all. If you can turn on your video, if you like to greet us, feel free to greet us. Lovely to see you, Patience. Lovely to see you, Kojo.
Oh, thank you so much, guys.
Stigmata, hi. You see, coming from Tanzania, coming from Accra, coming from the US. Lovely to see you all. Akwaba, Karibu. Hi, John. Hi, Mary. Hey, Wandia, lovely to see you. Zabe, lovely to see you. Oh, how exciting.
This is so nice.
Yes, indeed.
Because we are all over Africa and even beyond.
Yes, okay, please remember, welcome from Zambia. Please remember to keep yourselves on mute if you are not speaking. And if you can keep your camera on, all the better.
Okay. So thank you so much, Taka, for the introduction. So we actually know what we're talking about and everybody is ready. But Taka, I know you have a secret for us.
Oh, my
Please let it come.
Today is, you see, in the past, for those who haven't joined us before, in the past, it's usually me talking. Last time I was blessed to have a guest. And today I have another secret guest who I'm about to unveil to you. So give me a drum roll. So the guest we have with us today is none other than Janet Mawio. Janet, can you turn on your camera so folks can see you? Yay!
Welcome,
so
Janet.
Janet has over 30 years experience in the global nonprofit sector. In the last 16 years, for those of you who don't know Janet, she's been the executive director of the Kenya Community Development Foundation, otherwise known as KCDF, which was the first community foundation in East and Central Africa, where she has provided outstanding leadership in growing and recognized indigenous foundation that promotes community development, community-driven development. What's been so special about Janet, what most of us have also known her leadership for, is that KCDF, under Janet's leadership, has been instrumental in spearheading the process of structuring relevant sustainability assets. In simple English, this means for organizations that really struggle with sustainability into the long term and reducing donor dependence, KCDF has provided a model, an example under Janet's leadership for doing this. And thank you, Janet, for that. But I personally have for a long time admired Janet and held her on a pedestal. We were both country directors at ActionAid together. And when I first joined ActionAid as the country director for Ghana, I knew there was a challenge with the organizational development and structure. And I said, who can help me with this? Somebody I need. And everybody said, guess what? Speak to Janet Mawio. So I grabbed Janet at one of these meetings we had for country directors, and she sat me down and she's like, okay, Taka, if your organization is gonna work well, you need to do this, you need to read. She still can't remember that day, but I will never forget it. So Janet is an amazing leader. She sits on the board of many organizations, including she's the chair of the Open Society Institute for East Africa, or SIA. So Janet, you're incredibly welcome. We're really blessed to have you. Welcome, Karibu.
Thank you.
Taka, this is so wonderful because now we see the synergy between yourself and Janet, and we know that we're going to have a fantastic time because it's not going to be just from one multi-faceted person, but now we are going to have two strong women going to share their experiences with us. Now, for people joining us now, thank you so much for joining us. We are so glad. We are seeing the numbers on Facebook. We are seeing the numbers also on Zoom. We are really, really grateful. Thank you. I want to start. We really want to start. Want to really dive in and go. And I want to start with Janet. Janet, welcome again. My first question to you. With this transition happening to you at KCDF, how are you feeling? How are you feeling? The whole situation.
I'm actually relieved. I'm feeling good. I feel like free at last. I don't know what's been binding me, but it's a real good feeling to just get to the end of your tenure and be looking forward to it. I feel that I have so much hope and confidence about the organization. Yeah, I feel good, you know, and I have so much confidence in a great team we have there, in a very engaged board. We've gone through so many things trying to figure out things, and you know, just that excitement of that there are other people who believe in the same things I've believed in all these years. I think that just makes me feel good to move on, because I know KCDF will continue standing and growing to higher heights.
Powerful, powerful. Thank you, Janet. And I think Stigmata is also recognizing the fact that Janet is also a founding director and member of the Africa Philanthropy Network. So Janet exercises leadership not just only of KCDF, but of so many organizations within the philanthropy sector. So Janet, I think you are feeling relieved because you have addressed so many challenges that others face with transition. But from your experience and your work with so many civil society organizations, what have you seen as some of the major challenges with leadership transition?
Yeah, like where you started, I think leadership transition is a challenging thing, and it's something that many of us sometimes dread. Because if you have a good leader, you're happy things are moving on. So you don't want any conversation around transition. No, you'd rather engage in anything else. So I think some of the common challenges involve things like, you know, just a lot of personalization of an organization, such that a lot is built around that one individual. A situation where that person is the last word, so you may not have good systems and good structures which can stand the test and which are not reliant on that person. Very often there is poor planning because transition is complicated. It involves, you know, the face you knew moving out and maybe others. So if you haven't planned for it, then of course there can be challenges. Recruitment of a successor is a real challenge, and a good recruitment process can be a big challenge if it is not done objectively, if there isn't a good understanding of what exactly are we looking for. What's the DNA of this organization? What is that uncompromisable issue that we need to ensure, even as we find somebody to move on, what is that we are looking for? So I think just being able to think through and arrive at and consensus and making sure there's ownership even of that whole process, because very often you can have a real division even within a board when you're having a pending transition, and that's a big challenge because the board is supposed to guide that process. So in case that is happening, that is a big issue. And I think sometimes the exiting leader can also be a big problem because the leader may not be ready to go. They may be feeling like, no, who am I if I don't have this organization? Do I have a personality or do I not? You know, why am I moving? What's wrong with me? So I think these are just some of those things that that affect organizations. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Wow.
Thank
Wonderful.
you. You know, it's
Thank you
interesting.
so much.
Vera, have you noticed, Janet, Mary is saying that you're looking so much younger, brighter.
I was just about to say that. I've been looking at that comment. It's so much nicer to know that people actually see the difference.
Maybe I should say for Mary that I'm actually in Ghana as part of my transition, and it's been great to be here to pull back and reflect and, you know, get the team doing things on their own as part of, you know, making them gain confidence. And I've been so impressed by what they are able to do. And it's like, they actually don't need me, they can function, you know. So Mary, thank you for the compliment.
Oh, thank you, Mary. Now, if you're here watching us, we don't want to do this alone. Okay, Janet is speaking to us about her experience, but we don't want to do it alone. And so in the chat box, please let us know if you are at that stage of moving, or you're thinking of moving, or you have a thought of succession. Kindly drop your experience, how you're feeling right now in the comment section, okay? Because we want to be very interactive. We are not doing this alone. And we will be ready to read them out as we go along. Please go ahead, Taka.
Great, thanks, Janet. In a minute, it would be interesting to hear about your time here in Ghana, the program that you're on, and how that has been helping you with the transition. And if you see any of your colleagues who are on that same program here, just call them out, because we'd love to also dip into their experience, because it means they're also leaders in transition, been thoughtful about their transition. But as you're looking through that, maybe my question for you is, as you talked about the challenges, some of the solutions or recommendations were implied. But if you really had to recommend from your experience, what are some of the critical things an organization or a leader needs to be thinking about as they start to go through leadership transition or plan for leadership transition? What would those be?
Yeah, I think as I was thinking about this afternoon, Takab, it felt like it's like when we talk about sustainability. Sustainability is not something you think about overnight. It's something you've been working through most of your life somewhere. And I think leadership transition is very much like that, because it's about how we have organized ourselves. Since we will not live in this organization forever, what systems have we put in place? What structures have we put in place? How engaged are the different parts of the organization in what the organization is? And so yeah, you want to do leadership transition at the top, but how is transition within the different key departments? So you have to think about it holistically. finance department needs to be able to go on, because you've mentored them and they have understood their role. In a grant-making organization like we are, that is important within the board. So it's thinking holistically across all the department. That's what creates the structures which allows the organization to go on. And I think it's also very important that other people are bought into the DNA of the organization, so that you're not carrying it with you. It's been bought, it's understood. Other people know the bottom line, the things you really think are important for you, the boundaries, you know. So again, planning the recruitment process is really important, being objective about it. And I think this often comes with all kinds of things because of what we see in our countries, especially here in Africa, but it is so important that this is an objective process. If you can do it with an outside support agent, it would be great if they understand who you are. Again, if there's a misfit in any of these things, you can end up with still the wrong person. So it's so important that the whole thing is well planned. You think about the timing. You go to also have a proper onboarding process, because in a good onboarding process, you help the new leader also understand what are the things that you really need to take care of in the organization. Where were you? Where were things? What are the things that you struggled with, which need continued attention? So I think as you work through this holistically about yourself, putting your systems and things in order, you don't want an organization to collapse. So for a nonprofit, it's so important that if you can stabilize funding, and that's something that we've been working on. It's so important. Just stabilize things so that there is time for the new leader to settle and pick up things and take them to the next level. Don't create a crisis, you know. So for me, these are some of the things. So building capacity is very important. Confidence of those whom you've been working with, so that everybody knows where things are going, where things are. And they are able to, and creating spaces for this kind of growth to happen. I think it's part of a good transition to happen. I think those are some of the highlights that I can think of, but I can see a couple of my colleagues at the right time I can call, be aware, and Ngwase and company in Toro. I can.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Janet, I want to find out, at what stage in your career did you start thinking about the transition?
I'm not sure that I'm a good sample because actually, as way back as 19, when I did my OD in consulting, that was way back in the late 90s. By the time we were meeting with Saka, that's why I was feeling very hot at the time, and I knew nothing. Yeah, so I kept thinking, I think somewhere by the time I was turning 45, I sort of knew where my passion was. And I knew I really was interested in scaling up the growth of organizations. And so I started thinking, what is that training I can do so that I improve that part of my life, of what I want to do? And that's how far back that I started thinking about. And actually 7 years ago, I said, I need a strong car which can go into rough places in case when I transition. And I did exactly that. So I've been thinking about this for a long time. I'm not sure if I've answered, but there you go.
Yes, I love that, because you actually brought in a very practical thing. Eh? It's being able to prepare yourself financially to transit. Exactly. Because many times I've seen leaders who, whether it's organizational life or whether it's politics, they can't afford to leave. Eh? Because you have children in certain types of schools, you need the car, you need the what. So it's how you organize your financially. I think organize yourself financially is what you're alluding to. So really useful. One quick question I'll ask you before I invite you and Vera to bring out some of those colleagues of yours who are going through the same thing, is some of the things you recommended, which are so useful, require resources. You know, some of the issues around, for instance, having a really robust recruitment process. that's transparent to ensure you get the right person. There were some other things you mentioned, stabilizing the funding. So what would you suggest to organizations that haven't quite gotten to the level of maturity of KCDF, where things are not yet that stable and they're still kind of hustling? And yet the leader is thinking, I need to be thinking that even at this level, I shouldn't be here forever. What would you suggest in terms of how they manage it with the limited resources they have?
I think there are various options, and that's where networks come in, because sometimes if you grow networks, you'll be surprised. You may find, and I've seen some in this group, you may find there are people who are good OD people who would be willing to help you think through some of the, the practicalities. How can I enhance the board, for example? What else can I do? Could maybe one of them might be willing to even help in being part of the recruitment committee if there's something like that, because they bring some skills in some, and objectivity if you can't afford. And I find there are many of us who do a lot of voluntary sort of support to other people and other organizations. So I think there are things, but the point is, as much as possible, it's like eating well. You don't eat well one day. You try to eat well as an ongoing process, because your body needs to have good immunity. You don't wake up one day and say, now today it's my day, I'll start taking my zinc. No, creating a good eating habit is a good thing. So I think even when an organization does not have a lot of resources, they can be prudent in their expenditure. And I think all of us have different ways of making that happen, making the shilling go far as much as possible. And that allows you to create a saving culture, which is not always common among nonprofits, especially. And sometimes then you're able to use some of those kind of resources, creating some flexibility, and it's a process. So if you create that way, you'll find over time you're creating, a reserve fund, which you can tap on, but there are volunteers, there are all kinds of people who can be supportive, especially if you've also been networking with them. When they are recruiting, maybe you've offered to sit in a recruitment panel. Maybe it's their time to sit in yours. So I think all these are some of the things that one can do when they don't have a lot of resources. And I've been there, I've done it, and it works.
Awesome. Thank you so much for this. Just a few more questions, and I'm hoping to hear from some of our participants. It will be so nice to hear from you, whether you're thinking of transition or you are actually in the period of transition. We really want to hear from you. So you can raise your hand or put it in the chat box and we would read it out. Now, Janet, during this time when you are in transition, do you know the person who will be taking over from you? And if you do, how do you feel about it?
Oh, thank God I do. By the time I came to Ghana, I knew the person was taking over from me, and we're in touch, and they're in touch with the office. But of course, they have to finish serving their notice until the time when we'll do a month's overlap. So I feel good. I'm feeling good. They have met some of my board members, and they'll be meeting others. So it's been a process. We are putting together a pack we're really trying our best to get her to, to feel at home, to know as much, even if I want to produce whatever would call dirty linen, just so that she can feel comfortable, she can know what she needs, what she's up to. And so I feel good. I feel good about it. I'm confident, and I'm hoping I can continue to support her whenever she needs any help.
Nice. Janet, I'm going to read a question in the chat, and then I see Ngwase's hand is up. But Kona from Tanzania, Kona, you're so welcome. But Kona is really asking, she's going to be transitioning from Tanzania to South Africa. She's been mentoring a group of young women artists, and they're feeling quite anxious that she will be leaving. How can she leave them and make sure they don't feel abandoned? And I see this in many instances. I mean, Kona is volunteering, but this happens even in instances where people are working professionally. Yeah? She's saying she wants to leave responsibly. How do you transition out in a way that those you leave behind feel like you've just not abandoned them and left them?
I think this is where we have to work maybe from the beginning as if we are transitioning. And this is where continuing building capacity, continuing to build the confidence of the people you're working with, creating networks. Don't be a one long ranger. I don't know if that's what we call it. You know, let's avoid being that. Let's create a network and surround ourselves with a network of people, other like-minded people who can be there for, you know, for a group like this. But also let's build confidence. We talk about capacity building. We talk about mentoring, coaching. Throw people in the deep end, and my team will tell you I've done that to each one of them. Let them swim, and most of the times they will swim. But be there to, you know, to support, to give, you know, if there's need to correct anything, but to give them confidence and to show what can be done better, you know. So I think this has to be a way of working as opposed to something you do on the day you are leaving. But even now, with technology, people are remaining in touch, even when they are far. I'm in touch with my team, even though I'm in Ghana, you know. So I think there's so much now. We are so much better off than we were a long time in terms of being able to provide long distance support and continue that that kind of coaching and embracing them so that they are able to feel confident to move on.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Taka, I think this question is for you. I want Janet to breathe a little bit.
Will we take Ngwase's, sorry, Vera, just before you go, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it. Ngwase has had his hand up for a while. Just before
okay, Ngwase, please go ahead.
Well, thank you so much. Hi, Janet.
Hi.
So we are actually in Ghana together with Janet. So we are
excellent, great
team holding each other's hand as we are planning for our transition. So well done, Janet, so far. And I see my country person, Muya. Hi, Muya from Zambia. I'm from Zambia. Yeah, I'm currently the executive director of the Women's Network in Zambia, the non-governmental gender organizations coordinating council. So, and I've been in the organization for the last 16 years. Yeah, so like Janet, unlike Janet who started thinking of a transition way back, my thinking of transitioning actually started around 5 years ago. You know, having served about 4 contracts in the organization, and you know, I reached a time where you go into a meeting and people start calling you auntie, then you begin to start saying, oh, okay, I think it's time. So that gave me that courage to say, it's always important, you know, to recognize when your time is up. And that is principle number 1. So before you begin to register diminishing rates of return, you need to begin to think of the organization. Because in most cases, we found that NGO leaders, we tend to think of transitioning just on our own part without thinking of the organization. And that is principle number 2. Like Janet said, the sustainability of the organization, it is up to a leader to be able to determine what sort of environment am I living, what sort of environment am I creating, and also what are my efforts in terms of harnessing emerging leadership within the organization or outside the organization. So in my case, I first sought board support because it's important that you work together with the board. When that thinking comes, you share with the board to say, yes, I may be a very good performer. You are always renewing my contract, but this is my feeling. And this is my view of the organization. So one of the things, like Janet mentioned, it's important when that time comes, you are able to think through of where the organization should be in the next 5-10 years. So you need to think about that, have discussions or conversations with the board in terms of where you are seeing the organization. So that even as you are indicating, I'm stepping out, but you are saying, look here, we need to create an environment for a high quality onboarding, like Janet said. So one thing I wanted to add to what Janet has already said is that in many cases, we as NGO leaders tend to think transitioning is one thing. And it's like there are two things, separate from the organization. But what we have come to reflect upon as we are here is that every time we are doing our strategic planning for the organization, we also need to do the succession planning so that then it becomes part and parcel of the strategic plan. So then the question of resources, as you asked, comes in as we are finding resources for our programming and our various interventions in terms of influencing policy. We are also mobilizing resources, towards the organization succession planning. So like Janet mentioned, the whole issue of harnessing leadership within, where you are indicating to your staff members, like for me, for example, already when I started thinking in that way and I got board support, I began to share with the management team to say, look here, the organization is not equals to me, but this is the thinking that I'm having. So in that way, I was also creating confidence in the management team that they need to begin to see themselves as the next executive director. In the meantime, I've continued in terms of ensuring, like Janet said, ensuring that things are in place, the organization is running, actively involved in the resource mobilization. But the most important thing also, as we are now currently developing our own transition plan, we are also developing the organization transition planning, thinking 5-10 years forward, what the organization can do, how we are going to be a part of facilitating the onboarding of the next person. And I also want to indicate to say, I think I have an idea from within the organization, somebody that has the potential, to take over. And, deliberately working around, creating an environment and creating opportunities, for, the management team members, for them to begin to, to hold on to the mantle. So I thought I would add on. Thank you, Janet, for that.
Wow, absolutely. Thank you for that sharing. And I think you've said something that builds on, alludes to Charles's question on the chat, huh? Because you talked about, Ngwase, about the involvement of your board. Huh? So Charles is asking you, Janet, it would be great to know what has been the role of the KCDF board in ensuring a successful transition?
I can tell you one thing, and anyone thinking about ever associating with KCDF, we have a very, very engaged board, board of directors and also trustees. And I think, if I'm not wrong, I think I've even seen a trustee. I don't know how they got here. Vijo, I saw you, even if you didn't see me. Anyway, the board has been extremely engaged and very concerned. There's something about KCDF. One of our newer colleagues recently said, you get to KCDF, you breathe KCDF, you think KCDF. So there is that thing. So even within the board, guys believe in this organization and in the power of the organization. And so right from looking at what is the new JD? There was a historical JD. What about where KCDF is going? What kind of a JD are we looking at? What's the role? What do we see as the emerging role? Yeah, maybe Janet was like this, but what do we see as needed for where the next phase of the organization? So the board was part and parcel of thinking through that, figuring that. And of course, even when it came to, so how do we recruit? And going through a competitive process of figuring out who would be the best recruiter. And we had to find someone who knows this organization, or who at least understands who we are and is able to help us figure out who can fit here? What are the skills? Where do we find them? And they've been part of trying to see who else could be around whom we need to be thinking of. So they've been involved inside out through the stages. The recruiting agent went through the process, brought it back to the board, and when they were looking at the finalists, so they have been completely involved, Charles, in this process. And even after we zeroed in on someone, meeting them informally to double check, yeah, does this sound like right? So they are very much engaged and also wondering, so where are we with things? Is everything okay? Janet, what else do we need to take care of before you leave? All that, the board has been at the center of that. We have a very, very engaged board.
Thank you, Janet. And just before
Thank you
Vera
so
comes in with the next question, indeed, I need to commend the African Women's Development Fund, who have also recently gone through quite a smooth leadership transition. In fact, I think they're a model for leadership transitions as they went through founder to somebody that comes in externally, and then now to a third CEO. And as a member of the board, we were highly involved in the process of the recruitment. So echoing what you have said, Janet, in terms of how involved your board has been. Back to you, Vera.
Thank you so much, Saka. Janet, we want to also find out, for your recruitment process, one, did you find somebody internally? Now, if you did, that is fine. But in case we have somebody on the call who is also thinking of transition, but the organization have not found somebody internally, but rather from the external, from outside, and they are not happy, what then do they do? So this is in two folds.
Rather than putting her on the spot about her own internal, we've seen, I think Ngwase said she was able to find somebody internally. But we constantly see this challenge of, if you can't find somebody internally, or somebody internally applies, but in the end, you end up getting somebody externally. How do you deal with that fallout that the external person faces?
Yeah, I think those are the challenges, the real challenges that organizations face. I think we've been a kind of organization that believes in going through a proper process. And that's why we were not talking about people, we were talking about what is the next role we are seeing of the next ED? Where is the organization going? Who can best fit in there? When you do that, you're not looking at people first, but you're looking at what is the job that needs to be done, what skills, and who best fits that. And so when you go through a competitive process with both internal and external candidates, you are trying to get to that point. And even when you have internal candidates, you and I would do that, have candid conversations and encourage them to apply. And again, also deal with, it's good to know when, it's like when you say you are vying for a political role, sometimes you may make it, sometimes you don't. Your life doesn't come to an end because it is, you didn't make it. So I think that is why I think as leaders, we are always coaching people. And even when promising people around us are looking at roles like that, I think it's good to be able to kind of also help them be prepared for a life of winning and a life of not winning, so that and I think very often is everybody has a next area of growth. What are those skills your next person needs to grow to get there? And in case they are not quite there, then it means they would have hoped to work on that. So even everybody, all of us, I think, have areas to grow. And if we focus on what are the areas we need to grow on for our next role, then we are motivated to go on. We don't have to be this, and you might lose it this time, but next time you'll be there, So I think it's also creating that right mindset among the leaders we are working with within our organizations, so that in case they don't make it, they still are able to go on because they can see where they are going with their career. It's not the end, there is another stage that is coming up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Saka, do you have one more before I?
Yes, and in fact, I see there's something that's come in. And also, as I'm reading on the chat, it would be great to see if there's anything from Facebook. But if Jillian has a comment. Hi, Jillian, lovely to see you. Jillian is asking, how do you balance, Janet? And Janet, don't feel pressure. You can call on any of your other colleagues who are part of your program. Janet is part of this amazing program of leaders in transition. So call on them to also support you with the questions if you would like. But Jillian is asking, How do you balance the pressure of having a role in leadership become available and the internal person is not the best suited, but the person has been there for a long time and let me see, oops, that person has been there for a long time and that person and those around them feels that the person keeps getting passed over. This is a tough one. Do you defer to an acting role to test out, or do you still go through the full process and explore internal candidates as well? So is it clear, Janet?
Yeah, I think what you're saying is someone has been around for a long time. Suppose they are not the quite right fit, but there are people around who, you know, who feel maybe they are, you know, what happened.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, and this is why I am a strong believer in good appraisals with your team, where everybody gets to know what are they good at, you know, because very often that happens and you end up sacrificing the organization because you are trying to be favorable to someone. We must know if Africa is going to have strong organizations, we have to be objective about building strong leadership. And this leadership is not about how long I've been around. It's not about me. It's not about the person who may have done many years. It's about the organization being equipped, being versatile to move to the next level. Who fits that role? That's why I talked about a united board in agreeing what are we looking for. And it's not about the ED choosing someone, no. It's about the governance team putting in place an objective process to find who fits for where we are going as an organization. Once you start looking at who has been here long, who can do this, you start missing it. So that's why I said the recruitment process has to be objective, guided by what you are looking for. So if you think it's about favors, giving somebody a favor because they've done this period or they did this, then you are missing it. So leadership transition has to be guided by a very objective process. That's why you need an objective board. And probably we need to, the more, while we've been here actually, we've increasingly, and in Toro, I hope you can make a comment about this, or Isabel. I think we are more aware that for good transition, that roundedness, the nature of a board, if you retain a board which is not right, you may find you're doing the wrong things because the leaders you put in place may not be leaders who prioritize the organization. So you may find while you are in session, you may need to work at revamping your board as you revamp your systems, because the board is very critical. What motivates people? So in the end, that leadership transition is one thing, but you'll find that, I talked about a holistic way of looking at the transition. We have to address all these other components which make a strong organization. And the board is critical because the board cannot oversee a good process if it is not equipped to do that. So you may find if you have another 2 years, you may have to work on an issue like that. I don't know whether Elzabe, you want to say something now, or is it Ntoro? I wanted Ntoro to say something about this issue of internal versus external.
Elzabe or Ntoro?
Yeah, anyone, or even any of the others. I think I saw a wall here also.
Oh, wow. How can you be here and not be talking? Okay, Itoro is coming on and then Elzabe. Itoro, go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. And thank you for having me on the program. Thank you very much, Janet. You have mentioned and said a lot about the internal processes of getting a leader of a succession plan. I will just add to the fact that the main thing you should look at is what is in the best interest of the organization. And you have to remember that it's not about you, it's about the organization. So where are you going to? What's your plan for the next 5 years? What's your plan for the next 10 years? Who fits, into that position? And you need to remember how you were recruited into the organization in the first place. Were you recruited because it was a favor to someone? Or were you recruited because you merited that position? So the recruitment process is extremely important. And it's even more important to the outcome or the output of each individual staff. Because if you're there as a favor, it's different from being there because you merited it, because you're selected based on merit. So as a leader, it's important that you know the strengths and the weaknesses of your team. And if you're a leader and a good leader at that, you should be able to build the weaknesses of your team. Know what each member of your staff can do. Know what each member of your staff cannot do. And if you think that person is a proper fit, like Janet said, that's be a proper fit, not because you have said so, but because it is proper for the organization at that point. But like Janet also said, it's a process. It's not a one-off thing. So before it even gets to the point where you're looking for someone to succeed, or you're implementing that succession plan, you must have built the capacity of your staff from the beginning. It has to be part, for me, it's a bit different because I'm the founder of the organization I work with. I have led it since 2007. It took us a long time to be able to achieve what we wanted to achieve. But in the organization, we had a 5-year plan, we had a 10-year plan. So from the beginning of the organization, I knew I was going to leave at a time. And I would leave when 1, 2, 3, 4 has been put in place. So I worked towards putting 1, 2, 3, 4 in place. And I knew that at the end of 1, 2, 3, 4, I was becoming so restless, and I knew it was time to move. Once you get restless, know that it is time for you to move on to something else. So because I was very conscious of the fact that I would move, I trained everybody to know that they can also move. So it wasn't about me. But while you are there, if you're deficient in any way, then you have to build your capacity. I believe very strongly that some organizations that don't train the staff, don't build their capacity because they think they will leave at a time. But I believe those are your legacies. Train them, let them go somewhere else, and they'll represent you the way you want to be represented, because they will always remember that you built their capacity. So in the process of the past 5 years or so, when there's a meeting in the office, I don't attend meetings with donors alone. I attend the first time, the second time, you take over and move on and manage that relationship. So whether I'm there or not, the office can go on. So the processes and procedures in place make it very easy for me to step aside for the next 10 years, and I will not be missed because the organization has processes in place that can go on without me being there. So the best thing is know that it is about the organization. It is definitely not about you, and it has to be based on merit, whether it's from within or from outside, because that will give the person the confidence to give his or her best, knowing that this was given at this position. She got in there because she merited it.
She warranted it. Thank you so much, Itoro. And I wonder, there's another question in the chat, and let's think context. This could be either NGOs or corporates, because we have leaders on this call who are in both sectors, and either Elzabe or Awal can respond to this. People like you, Janet, and Itoro, or Elzabe, Mohammed, while you're all at the top of the organization, so you are the ones who are clearly ensuring that the process is transparent. But as Jillian is asking in the chat, what happens if you are not the head of the organization, and instead the head bypasses due process and selectively appoints someone to a leadership role, a manager role, based on a personal relationship, not the needs of the company or organization as Toro is talking about? What do you do? And again, Elzabeth, feel free to come in. Awal, feel free to come in. Those of you who are now pros at transition, or Janet.
Taka, is it possible to ask one Mary Mukindia? Mary Mukindia is a very experienced corporate leader. I had seen her, unless she's there.
Yes,
yeah,
she's here. Mary is here.
Mary is a coach. She's so many things, and I can't be talking when she's here.
Mary, karibu. Welcome.
But Janet is putting me on the spot. I don't know how to answer that one. I think I would answer it in the way that when we are doing female future training, which is a Norwegian program done with a number of African countries, is that we tend not to answer generic questions and answer questions that have to do with I and what I can do to control it. So this is an action that is being done by other people, and it's so difficult to change other people and their ethics and their morals. So I would perhaps say it's such a difficult question to answer. You have to then determine, do I want to stay in an organization where their ethics and the way they process and manage themselves does not equate to my values and my ethics? Because you can talk about this forever, but it's about what can I do to you to make you better. So I prefer to how we're discussing it, and it's my experience, what I can do, and everybody's talking from what they have done, because the theoretical questions of other people's issues, will take you into a twirl, and you will never get to the end of it. I hope that kind of answers it in a way. Thank you for the
Thank you. And Mary, still feel free to come in terms of some of the key lessons or recommendations you have on leadership transitions that maybe have not been spoken about, that you think it's important for us to hear this evening. Yes, Elizabeth, am I pronouncing it right?
Yes,
yeah,
totally correct. Yes, it's Elizabeth. Yes, I want to just jump in and say, maybe the thing is that everybody needs a transition plan, and not only the leaders. Your management team must also have a sort of a transition plan. Where do I want to be in 5 years? Where do I want to be in 10 years? And if something like that maybe happen in your organization, that you feel you're overlooked in a position, then you must go and think, but where do I want to be? And focus on your capacity that you can build, and not wait only for the organization to build your capacity, if that's not the way they are doing it. So in my own experience, things work that way, that I had to go and do my own trainings and go out and get my own things and make my own transition. So it's important that all people in life must make their own decisions and must have their own life goals. And through that, you can move on and beyond organization. So I think it's very important that we sometimes look at ourselves and where do we want to be? And also, like you said, it's very important, the previous speaker said that as well, think of where you want to be and plan that ahead. And don't leave things and leave people as legacies. Victoria also said, build everybody's capacity and let them go. I always say, if staff come and say they want to resign, I always said I did something good because you had the courage to move on. As long as you stay in the organization, you are unsure, I didn't do my job. So if you can fly, have my blessing and fly.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Vera, I know we're running to the top of the hour. Aha, good. I was just going to say, we're not closing without Awal. We're not closing without Awal, one of our formidable EDs in Ghana, but also a founder. Huh? So Awal, some of your reflection on what it means as a founder of an organization to go through a transition.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. Let me just add to what Elzabi said. When it comes to transition, I think leaders do not only need transition plans for themselves, but also need to have a transitional plan for the organization. And if you are able to do that, then you establish a clear plan for succession. And what I think leaders should also do is to allow departmental heads to come out with succession plan so that their team members get to know how to succeed some key positions in the organization. So it's not just the responsibility of the leader to have such a plan for all key positions in the organization, but to facilitate a process and have one for himself or herself, and also get other leaders in the organization to co-create something like that with team members. When something like that is done, it addresses the issue of a leader bypassing processes to just handpick someone to lead a team, which will serve as demotivation to others, create chaos, and then create some kind of disaffection within the organization. So I think that we need to always make sure that we work together as a team to have some of these plans in place. I know others have already talked so much on these things. I'm not going to spend time looking at how we intend to, transition at this particular point. But Taka, let me just add that it's always important for leaders to also know what the ending is and what the new life will be, so that it reduces some kind of fear. But if you're a leader and you do not know how your next journey looks like, there is some kind of fear, and you want people in the position who will be loyal to you. In terms of difficulties, you can fall back on them. So leaders do some of these things because they are unsure about the future, and they feel like they may still need favors from people taking over their positions. And it's something that we can reflect over. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Awal. Thank you so much, Mary. Thank you so much, Elza B. Thank you, Gillian. So many people to say thank you to. Mira, thank you. Ngwezi, thank you. I hope I got the name right. But this has been fantastic. Today we have gone over our time. We've really gone beyond our normal 45 minutes. But before we close the curtains, before we round up, we want to find out one more from Janet. Janet, what is the first thing you're going to do when the whole transition process is done?
Wow, you got me unaware there. I think it's just that freedom to pursue things I love, and in this context, I think we really need to invest in growing leaders, in growing our boards, so that these processes can be well done. So I think just to do those things I love to do in this area, a bit more flexibility, not worry too much about organizing the next board. I've just did my last one this week. So I'm really excited and looking forward to, maybe I can do a bit more holistic life, take care of my bees, etc. So yeah, be a more balanced person, I hope, than I have been. Yeah. So I'm transitioning to do, a more balanced, colorful life, I hope. Yeah.
A more colorful life. I like that one. So thank you, Taka. Some few final words from you before we leave.
Maybe as we close, I will echo you, Vera, to say a big thank you to Janet and everyone who joined her from her team. Really learning from you, Janet, and your colleagues who are living transitions and who have been brave enough to go on the journey has been amazing. A huge thank you to everybody who has joined us on the call and given questions and comments. Those are so deeply appreciated. I'm taking away a couple of things, and we'll also post some of the key points on our Facebook. So if you don't like our Facebook, or if you're not on Facebook, we'll put them both on our Facebook page, Busara Africa, and on LinkedIn. But these are some of the key things I'm taking away as we close. It's important to put systems and structures in place. So you're thinking about you're thinking about the sustainability of the organization. It's important to have ownership right down to the lower levels, at all levels of the organization. So you think holistically about sustainability. Think about succession planning, not just of the one leader, but co-create that within the organization. Plan the recruitment well, do it well, make sure it's transparent, make sure it's objective. Invest time in onboarding to ensure that the person who comes in place is supported and is supported to succeed. Don't wait until the last minute. Start thinking like Janet and others about transition much earlier. Don't think of yourself, think of the whole organization. If you're at the top level, CEO, ED, MD, get the board on board and get them highly involved. And when you're thinking about yourself, start thinking, preparing yourself as a leader to manage your anxieties financially so that you are able to leave on a sound note and, picking up on Awal's advice. But thank you all so much. It's been absolutely amazing. As we normally end, we're going to invite everyone to please, if you can, kindly turn on your camera so we can take a group photo. And then I'm also going to start playing music. So we leave, it's a Friday evening. As I play music, turn on your cameras as we dance to the music away. But thank you all so much.
Thank you, and see you next month. The last Friday of next month, May, to see you.
Ready?
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you all. Wonderful weekend.
I'm loving Mary's
Bye-bye.
dance.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.